Welcome back to Arcade Cafe. Today we're doing a Fire Emblem series tier list. As of the recording of this video, the next Fire Emblem, Fortune's Weave, hasn't come out yet, but I'm incredibly excited and I can't wait to play it. First, I'm gonna rapid fire through Heroes and the Warriors games because I really don't have a lot to say about them. I love what Heroes does for the Fire Emblem series. It draws in a lot of hardcore and casual fans alike, and it's definitely a continuous source of income for the series. I love the countless amounts of art for all the characters. Personally, the gameplay isn't for me, and the skill effects have a Yu-Gi-Oh card's amount of words attached to them, so no thank you. For me, Heroes goes in C. I'm not a huge fan of Warriors gameplay. I've given many Warriors games many chances, and they've just never really clicked for me, except for like maybe Hyrule Warriors. But I do appreciate Fire Emblem Warriors for all the support conversations. Hearing Chrom talk to Ryoma is hilarious because they're both voiced by Matthew Mercer. For me, Fire Emblem Warriors goes in D. Fire Emblem Three Hopes. Again, not a huge fan of Warriors gameplay, but I appreciate this game for its abundance of Fodlan lore and support conversations with all the Three Houses characters. I love them all and this world so much. For me, Three Hopes goes into C+. And a bonus game for you, I wasn't even sure if I was going to put it on the list, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Fire Emblem. The game's not really for me. The gameplay itself is alright, I'm just not a fan of the overall idol theme. For me, it's going in D-. Alright, now for the mainline games. To save some of your time, I'm going to cover the original Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, Gaiden, and Mystery of the Emblem at the same time, because I'm going to give them the same ranking for the same reason. They're not really for me. I've given them a shot and I just don't enjoy them personally, but that doesn't mean I don't respect them. After all, the series wouldn't exist without these games, so for me, they all go in C. Next up is the Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon remake for the DS. Now this game gets a lot of flack for its graphics, and I mean people aren't wrong, this isn't too pleasant to look at, but I still enjoy the character portraits and the overall combat. Experiencing Marth's story was really cool, and this game made me feel closer to the series, because before this game, the only connection I had to Marth was Smash Brothers. I don't remember the game being particularly difficult. I think I used the warp staff to cheese the last few maps. My favorite character in the game was Ogma. He was definitely my most powerful unit besides Marth. For the Shadow Dragon remake, I'm really feeling like it goes in between C and B in C+. Next is Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, the remake of Gaiden. What a beautiful game. Seriously, the opening, the music, especially that final boss theme, the artwork, it's all so incredibly well done. It by far has my favorite opening of any Fire Emblem. Up until Fortune's Weave, it was the only Fire Emblem with dungeon crawling, and for the most part, I really enjoyed the dungeons. It's just that over time, the enemy encounters can become pretty repetitive, and since they're grid-based skirmishes, they can drag the pacing down considerably. But I really enjoyed the game, and its story too. I love that you control two armies and see the war from two different perspectives, and then at the end, both of the armies combine, and the final level is just this giant battle where you're controlling a ridiculous amount of characters. My favorite character in this game was Catria. For me, Shadows of Valentia is a solid S-tier game. Next up is Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem, the remake of Mystery of the Emblem for the DS. So I believe this was the first game in the series where you could make your own character, and you could also choose your own class to start as. It even had a pirate class. My memories of this game are a little hazy, but as far as I can remember, I enjoyed this game just as much as the Shadow Dragon remake. The graphics still aren't the best, but I didn't mind, I still had fun. Fighting alongside Marth as my own character in the story was pretty cool too. My favorite character in this game was, once again, my boy Ogma. Bro is just unstoppable. Plus he's got that cool scar on his cheek. New Mystery of the Emblem fits pretty snugly right in C+. Next up is a spicy one, Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. So, as of the writing of this script, I finished this game just last month in July, and I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. I genuinely got attached to its characters, and the twists and turns in this game had me on the edge of my seat. I went through all the emotions. I got hyped, I got sad, I got angry, definitely angry. I felt that one a lot, but in a good way. The game by far has the most sinister villains I've ever seen in a Fire Emblem game, and never have I ever felt more bad bad for a Fire Emblem lord than I have in this game. If everyone in the comments could give a salute to Sigurd, that would greatly be appreciated. I do have some gripes about the gameplay though. The maps are just way too big, and it takes hours to finish them. I understand they wanted battles to feel grand and large in scope, but most of the time you'll be spending on these maps is just moving your units around. The map size also affects the viability of the units themselves. If a unit doesn't have a horse or a Pegasus, they're almost useless. Fortunately, most of them do, so it's not a huge issue for me, but I just prefer the smaller, more concentrated Fire Emblem maps. Also, this is an older game that was meant to be played with a manual, but I had no access to said manual, so some of the mechanics, such as love points, were just invisible and unexplained to me. But I'm not going to count that against the game. It was a product of its time. Gameplay tutorials were in the manual, and the game expected you to use that. The last few maps of the game used way too many sleep staves against me. I didn't get Tearfing for Seliph, so I really struggled against Arvis. Luckily, Leaf is very overpowered and got me through it without the sword. Another gripe I have is that at the end of the game, you have to give Julia the Book of Naga to defeat the final boss, which I think is kind of dumb. Throughout the entire game, I never even used Julia a single time. She was level 1 when I gave her that book, but apparently that was fine because the Book of Naga is so absurdly powerful that it just gives plus 20 to all of Julia's stats. So even at level 1, she can solo Julius. But still, I think Arvis and Julius are just absurdly designed bosses. Forcing the players to obtain certain weapons to defeat them makes it feel like the army and characters you've been building throughout the entire game feel useless. Especially for me, since Seliph didn't have Tearfing. Seliph was basically useless. The main character was useless against these bosses. But all that aside, I really enjoyed the game. I know I just got done ranting about it for a hot minute, but I still came out of it feeling like I enjoyed a quality game, despite its faults, and I think that's because its story and characters are just that good. Don't get me wrong about the gameplay. It's fun and its combat animations are really cool. It's just the battles themselves last a very long time. My favorite character in this game was my boy, Leaf. He is the GOAT. I don't care what anyone says, I literally would not have finished this game without him. When it all started to look hopeless, Leaf picked us all up and carried us to the finish line. Genealogy of the Holy War for me goes right into B. I'm 100% sure if this game ever got a remake, it would easily be an S-tier game for me. But for now, it's a solid B. Next up is Fire Emblem Thracia 776. After finishing Genealogy, I immediately hopped right into this game, and I was excited because my boy Leaf is the main character of this game. We get to learn more about him here and what he went through before he joined Seliph in Genealogy, and I tell you man, Leaf has been through a lot. Gameplay-wise, Thracia went back to smaller maps, thank goodness, and it just felt way more like a traditional Fire Emblem game. The game was actually pretty difficult for a few reasons. Characters can get fatigued if you use them too much in battle, which wasn't a huge hurdle to overcome. You can just drink a stamina potion, which those are rare, but I did find one shop that sold them for about 5,000 gold a pop. But luckily, next to that shop, there was an arena, so I grinded for a few hours until I had enough potions to last the entire game. So after that point, fatigue was no longer a problem for me. But the biggest pain in the butt I had to deal with were status effects. Usually in Fire Emblem, if you get hit with a status effect like sleep or poison, it lasts a few turns and then it goes away. But in Thracia, they are permanent until you finish the map or until the status effect is cured with a restore staff, which are not very common to come across in this game. And just like Genealogy, the last few maps were very difficult because I had to deal with a lot of sleep staves, and on top of that, I also had to worry about berserk staves, which makes me lose control of my character and attack my allies, and the blizzard spell, which has up to 10 range and inflicts sleep. Oh, and the final boss can just turn you into stone, which is a status effect you can't cure, and he can turn Leaf into stone, and you need Leaf to beat the game. But I'm just grateful I didn't have any bosses that required certain weapons to defeat. So overall, the difficulty was very manageable. My favorite character in the game was Halvin. I love my boy Leaf, but Halvin carried so many maps for me. He was one of the few characters I could send out solo and not have to worry about him at all. Thracia 776, for me, goes right up into A tier. Next is Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. Oh boy, I feel like I don't have many nice things to say about this game. The story is alright. I like Roy as a character, but man, I just do not like him as a unit. He has got to be the squishiest lord in the Fire Emblem series. Well, maybe besides Makai. Micaiah. He has just terrible stat growths, and a promotion that comes way too late in the game and doesn't do him any favors. But luckily, he has a good assortment of characters to back him up and carry him to victory. I will say I enjoyed the ROM hack of this game called Project Ember more than the original game itself, because it fixes all the issues I had with Roy and gives all archers 3 range, which is pretty nice. My favorite character in this game was Deke. He carried me for the whole game, and he looks like Zoro from One Piece. Binding Blade for me goes in D. A bit low, I know, but the overall experience for me was a tad bland. It never really challenged me, and nothing about its story or characters really pulled me in. Plus, they did my boy Hector dirty, and I'll never forgive them. Next is Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade, or in the West, it's just called Fire Emblem. I love all 3 of its main characters, Eliwood, Lyn, and Hector. Especially Hector. He's definitely my favorite axe unit in the entire series. The story really does feel like a journey you're taking with these characters, and that's not just because of your self-insert avatar. Honestly, I forgot he was there 90% of the time, but it's because I grew so attached to Lyn and Eliwood that I wanted to see their journey through. Also, shout out to Eliwood for being the only Fire Emblem dad to not die in their son's game. Blazing Blade is fun to play through. My only gripes are that the tutorial lasts way too long. Like, it's several levels long. I would be several hours into the game and see a tutorial pop up and be like, wait a minute, I'm still in the tutorial? And rain sucks. I hate the rain. But beyond all that, it's a solid game. My favorite character was Hector. He's the GOAT. Blazing Blade for me goes into B. Next up is Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. This one was pretty good. I don't really have a lot to say about it. I like that it's basically 2 games and you get to see 2 different perspectives of the war from both Erica and Ephraim. As for the story, I liked it about as much as Blazing Blade. I don't really have any gripes about the game. My favorite character was Lute. She's just a very good mage. Sacred Stones for me goes up into B. Now the next 2 games I'm gonna rank at the same time, because they're like one giant really good game. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I love the Tellius series. The story and characters are amazing, and Ike is my favorite lord in the entire series. I played both games physically on my Wii, and I had to pay $222 to obtain my copy of Path of Radiance because they were so hard to find. I paid $90 for Radiant Dawn, but when they sent me the game, the disc was heavily scratched and didn't work. So I paid another $90 to buy another copy, which only came with the disc. But the disc worked, so I put it in the case my first order came with. Unfortunately, the cutscenes in my copy of Path of Radiance didn't work. The game would crash when a cutscene started, so I had to skip them. But the levels worked just fine, so when I finished a level, I'd watch the following cutscene on YouTube. And you would think that that would bog down the experience, but the story was so dang good that it really didn't at all. I love the conflict between the humans and the Lagoos, but overall, my favorite aspect was Ike's journey. He literally begins Path of Radiance as a young boy who has no idea where to go with his life. And over the course of the game, he becomes a guardian who protects his friends. He fights for his friends. And by the time we reach Radiant Dawn, Ike is a freaking legend on the battlefield. He's an immovable object, whereas Micaiah is an unstoppable force. Except when Ike gets in her way. Then she gets stopped a little bit. Okay, maybe a lot. But then they eventually work together and all is well. I'm the type of player who usually resets when a character dies in classic Fire Emblems, but in these 2 games I really didn't mind because the maps were just so much fun. Except for the maps with the Black Knight. That guy was not so fun. It was cool, but not fun to fight. My favorite character in both of these games was Ike. Easy, no contest. Ike is my boy. But since it's 2 games, I'll also add my second favorite character, Nephany. She's got just one of the coolest designs of a Fire Emblem character ever. But one of these games really isn't complete without the other, and that's why I'm ranking them at the same time. And I'm putting them both in A+. Next up is Fire Emblem Awakening. This game was the first Fire Emblem I ever played. My cousins bought me a Nintendo 3DS for Christmas and gave me a copy of Awakening, and ever since, Fire Emblem has been my 3rd favorite series ever. My second is Resident Evil, and my first is Zelda. After playing through the entire series, I went back and replayed Awakening for the first time in over 10 years to make sure it was fresh on my mind for this video. It's still an incredible game. I love all the characters, the music, the presentation, the romance, all of it. My only slight gripe going back to Awakening after playing the entire series is that the game is really easy, even on hard mode, and I play every Fire Emblem on hard mode if it's available. I haven't tried Lunatic yet, but I plan to someday. It's just that it's so easy to make everyone overpowered with access to infinite grinding, and I know you can say that about a lot of the games, especially if they had an arena, but I don't think my party has ever been been as overpowered as my most recent playthrough of this game, especially with the pair-up system. Man, that mechanic is busted. You can definitely feel the difficulty take a nosedive if you play the older games and then go back to play this one. But from a designer perspective, I understand. They needed this game to be accessible to a wider audience to save the series. Fire Emblem was not selling well, and one of the most intimidating aspects of Fire Emblem at the time was its difficulty and permadeath. So, to remedy that, they toned down the difficulty and included casual mode. I love casual mode. Say what you will, but if a Fire Emblem game includes a casual mode, I'm going to pick it every time without fail. I love my units, and if they died in classic mode, I would just reset anyway. This shift in difficulty opened the gates for so many new fans to join the series, and Fire Emblem would not be here today if it wasn't for Awakening, so I don't hold its low difficulty against it. Again, I haven't played Lunatic, so if I really want the game to beat me up and take my lunch money, I might just go back and give that a shot. But going back and playing Awakening was fun, nostalgic, and coming back to it with a perspective of all the games before it made me appreciate the game all the more, especially the DLC where we can recruit the heroes of the past. My favorite character in this game is Chrom. He just steals every scene he's in, and he's one of the coolest lords in the series. Dude's cape is constantly flowing in the wind. Awakening for me goes straight up into A+. Next up is Fire Emblem Fates. Right off the bat, the story is a complete mess, and so is the romance, and well, I'd rather not dive into that any further than I have to. Gameplay-wise, the game is really solid. It uses a lot of the same building blocks as Awakening, and even adds a few new things here and there. I will say at the time of release, this was a pretty expensive Fire Emblem to try and get into. There are 3 paths in this game, and they tried to sell each path as its own game, like Pokemon. Once you bought one path for $40, you could buy the other 2 paths for $20 each. The special edition was $80 and included all the paths on a single cartridge, but it was sold in very limited quantities and quickly became a scalper's playground. Most of the aspects of this game, its marketing, its story, its development, it was all very messy. And even if you know none of that going in, it's something that the player can just feel as they play the game. There are just so many glaring issues like difficulty being all over the place, units joining you way too late with stats that have little to no hope of surviving where you currently are in the story, weird character relationships, and a story that just has no idea what it's doing. My favorite character in this game is Felicia, my ninja maid. Fates for me, in its entirety, goes up into C+. Next up is Fire Emblem 3 Houses, and prepare your pastries because there's going to be a lot of glazing. As of the writing of this script, I have over 480 hours in this game. 3 Houses has my favorite world out of any Fire Emblem. There is so much world building in this game, it is nuts. Fodlan feels alive and lived in, and I always just want to know more about it. 3 Houses has my favorite characters out of any Fire Emblem, and they're all fully voiced, and all the voice actors breathe so much life into them, and in turn, these characters reflect that life back into the world of Fodlan, and they carry the story and all of its events with every line that they deliver. Medieval fantasy Hogwarts is such a cool setting. I love going around Garrick Mach planting flowers for stat boosters, maintaining my unit's motivation and building support with meals, being able to teach anybody any skills so they can be any class they want, and fishing just because I want to. There's so much freedom in this game, and that's my favorite aspect, but it's just restrictive enough on harder difficulties to provide a satisfying challenge to overcome. The maps are all very well designed, except for the ones in Cindered Shadows. And the music, dude, the music is jaw-droppingly awesome. Blue Skies in a Battle had me getting out of my chair and dancing with it. Every track has so much sauce, you could make a Chicago-style deep dish pizza with it. Lots of so many cool gameplay additions too, like battalions, combat arts, relic weapons, fighting giant monsters, Raging Storm, Raging Storm, Raging Storm! If I had any gripes about the game, I guess it would be its visuals and performance on Switch 1, which is where I spent most of my time playing it. The best way to describe the visuals is that they look unfinished, like they didn't have time to polish them up before release or something. And the Switch 1's performance runs mostly at 30 frames per second, but it dips a lot more than I'd like it to, though my Switch 2 has that 30 frames locked in and runs it smoother than ever. This game could definitely use a Switch 2 upgrade, but with how close Fortune's Weave is to releasing as of the writing of this script, I don't see that happening. My favorite character in this game is Bernadetta. Must protect. Also, she's my favorite sniper. 3 Houses for me easily goes into S rank. And as of this recording, recording, it's my favorite Fire Emblem game in the entire series. And last, but certainly not least, is Fire Emblem Engage. My initial impressions of Engage were not very good. Coming off of 3 Houses where the story and characters were the main focus, Engage left a lot to be desired. Its characters felt like cardboard cutouts of anime archetypes, and despite being able to team up with the souls of the heroes of the past, the support conversations with those legendary heroes were always disappointingly short and brief. But thinking on it for a while and going back to the game, the aspect that raises this game up considerably is its visuals and gameplay. Everything is so colorful and vibrant, which really fits its literal otherworldly vibe, and the smoothness of its animations are off the charts. These are hands down the best 3D combat animations out of any Fire Emblem so far, though it looks like Fortune's Weave might give it some competition when it comes out. I do like the ring system and all the abilities they give, though the ring gacha system is kinda shallow. Like, you can get some good abilities from it, sure, but most of what you'll get are rings that give you very minimal stat boosts. Dire Thunder and Wind God are by far the best skills you can get from that. I love the Garrick Mach sections in 3 Houses, so of course the Somniel disappointed me with how small and straightforward it was. Engage wanted to be a more linear game, and with how small and how few activities there are to do in the Somniel, I feel like it would have functioned better as a menu in between missions like the Tellius games. My favorite character in this game is Jade. Beautiful blonde woman in a full suit of armor? Heck yeah, brother. Engage for me goes into A, just above Thracia. And there you go. That's my Fire Emblem tier list. Now, I'm pretty sure there are lots of you with pitchforks and torches, but you know, when we play Fire Emblem, we fight all the time. But what has Fire Emblem taught us? It's taught us that the bonds we make along the way can overcome any obstacle. So instead of a hateful comment, just drop the name of your favorite character, or drop the name of your favorite game. I don't care, I'm not your dad. Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is just around the corner, and when it comes out, I will disappear into the ether and you will not hear from me until I finished it.